Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 20 of our 21-day challenge. This morning, we're looking at Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 through 20, where Jesus says this: "Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit, you will recognize them." Did you know that just because someone talks nicely about God, it doesn't mean that what they're saying about God is accurate? Did you know that just because someone may have a book published in the Christian section of a bookstore, it doesn't automatically mean that what the book says about God is true? Did you know that just because someone may say they're a Christian, it doesn't mean they actually are? That there is something called false teaching. There are false prophets, according to Jesus himself, let alone the rest of the Bible. And Jesus says you need to watch out for them so you're not deceived and carried away by the wrong things they teach. Because understand, the things we deal with here, God and Jesus, these have eternal consequences. So you don't want to get them wrong. And as you can see, God has some very strong words for false teachers throughout Scripture too. And you don't want to be one, and you don't want to follow one. Okay, so Jesus says, watch out for them, because they won't always be super obvious to you. They'll come to you in sheep's clothing, right? They'll look like someone you can trust when you actually can't trust them. So you've got to be discerning. Right? More than once, God says in the Bible, He doesn't change. So you've got to do the work of getting into the Bible for yourself and getting to know the real God for yourself so that you can tell the difference between teaching about Him that's accurate and teaching that isn't. You've got to learn to tell the difference between the real thing when it comes to God and a counterfeit from the devil. You've got to learn to test anyone who's teaching about God to see if they're truly from God or if they're a false teacher. And how do we do that? Well, Jesus tells you right here, one big way to do it, right? He says, look at their life. What is their life producing? Because just like you can look at a plant with apples on it and go, oh, that's an apple tree because it has apples. Or you look at a plant and go, oh, that has oranges on it, so that must be an orange tree. In the same way, you can look at a person's life. You can look at what the fruit in their life is, what their life is producing. You can look at the things they do, how they live, what their lives produce, and you can use that to identify them as, hey, that pastor's the real thing, or, oh, that one's a false teacher. Don't listen to them, right? By watching what a person does, you can tell if they're the real thing more quickly than you can tell just by listening to what they say. So what does their life look like? Do they look like Jesus? Do they live like He says to live in the Sermon on the Mount that we've been looking at these past 20 days, right? Do they love their enemies? Do they keep their minds and hearts sexually pure? Do they forgive others? Do they help people in need, pray, and even fast without making a big show of it or drawing attention to themselves? Do they make it their goal to show how great God is, not how great they are? Do they live for His glory, not their own? Is their focus on getting treasure in heaven? Or are they focused more on money and things here on earth? Do they really trust God to meet their needs and put Him first no matter what? Or do they walk around worrying all the time? Do they look at themselves and what they need to change before they start pointing at others and criticizing them? Are they on that narrow road to the perfect, awesome, loving God who wants to be the perfect Father to us? None of us is going to be perfect this side of heaven, but when you look at their life, does it look like that? And do they teach you to do the same things that Jesus said to? Do they teach what Jesus would teach as found in the Sermon on the Mount? Does what they say line up with the Bible, a plain reading of the Bible? Challenge for today. Take some time to evaluate the people you listen to who teach you about God. Me included, please evaluate me too. And make sure you're not listening to people who are false teachers. And if you are listening to any false teachers, stop. Find someone who isn't a false teacher to listen to. Doesn't matter if they're someone who's been your best personal friend for 40 years or they're a member of your family. False teaching is a big deal to God. You don't want to get this one wrong. Jesus says, watch out, be discerning.